But much worse, his only predator in this place is starving too, the puma.
I think there's no question but that Gigantopithecus, at least at times, was preyed upon by very large cats. Well, like all other great apes, the males had very large canines that definitely would have been useful weapons to ward off and perhaps dissuade predation by other animals.
The young must be defended at all costs. The strongest male stays behind, attempting to scare off the predators. But the pumas, driven by desperation, decide to fight. Luckily, Gigantopithecus still has enough strength to defend himself and his family. But no animal, no matter how large, can defend itself against Toba. Ash from the volcano is enough to fell this great ape.
You can basically suffocate from volcanic ash. There's a site in Nebraska that dates back to the Miocene where a large number of early horses, early rhinos, things like this, are well preserved in a volcanic ashfall that's quite similar.
As the ash is inhaled, it mixes with the moisture in the lungs and becomes a suffocating slurry. Large animals like Gigantopithecus are particularly vulnerable to this grim fate. It has been 4 days since Toba exploded. Amazingly, lava continues pouring from cracks in the earth. A tremendous amount of debris has been hurled into the air. Ash is spread throughout the world. Even today, a thin layer can be found locked in sediments of this time period. Scientists have drilled ice cores in the Arctic that contain Toba ash, a testament to the destructive power of this single volcano.
You can actually be looking at stratigraphic layers and find an ash layer that can be very thick at times. I mean, in places it's up to 1.5 meters thick.
The southern hemisphere is cloaked in permanent nightfall. The sun is blocked from the sky. Even worse, the ever-present ash is strangling plant life.
All the plants sitting there in these tropical rainforests are now have a gray coating. Photosynthesis gets turned off. They die.
Ever resourceful, humankind finds ways to stay well-fed. One advantage is critical: an ability to digest meat as well as plant material. When one is in short supply, the scattered communities of Homo sapiens can subsist on the other.
Homo sapiens going through this particular bottleneck would have had a couple of choices. We have to change diet or move. In the plains of Africa, where Homo sapiens was living and existing, climate change probably required, let's get out of town. Let's move out of here because we're starving.
But in this catastrophe, there is nowhere to run. Toba is laying siege to the whole world. Its grip tightens with each passing day. It may yet put the animals of Earth on the path to complete extinction. Incredibly, the eruption has raged unabated for 7 days. From the decimated island of Sumatra, Toba's deadly reach now extends thousands of miles to the northwest.
A single volcanic eruption, if it is large enough, can have a tremendous effect on life around the world. That material can get to the stratosphere, which is above our weather. And without our weather, without precipitation, it can stay there for years.
Almost 2,000 miles away in India, the steady accumulation of ash has taken a toll on the stegodon population. Though stegodons resemble elephants, they are much bigger. They stand 13 feet at the shoulder and are up to 26 feet in length, 1.5 times the size of the largest African elephants today. Their size is matched only by their appetite. In better times, they wandered far and wide in an endless search for food. Now, everything they normally eat is tainted with toba ash.
You're ingesting huge quantities of this nasty stuff. It's going to affect your intestinal flora. It's going to really make you sick, probably kill an awful lot of these creatures just from directly ingesting this stuff because they can't get vegetable material without it.
Even a few days without food is enough to fell these giant beasts. And as they struggle, opportunistic carnivores are more than willing to take advantage. Chief among them is Panthera leospalea, the cave lion. Cave lions got their name because most of their remains are found in caves. One reason for this could be the pack rats that were alive at the time.
Pack rats will go out and pick up anything shiny, including bones, and they will drag things as large as they can possibly carry back into their caves. So we actually end up with huge faunal accumulations based on pack rats going out, finding bones, bringing them back.
So whether or not these lions actually lived in caves is subject for debate. What is known for sure is that they were the top predators from Europe to Egypt and everywhere in between. They might look a lot like today's African lion, but they're easily a head taller and 2 feet longer. As formidable as they are, they could never take down an adult stegodon, until now.
Their prey seems to be slightly weaker, and after several weeks of not getting a good meal, these stegodons are not going to be acting in the normal sense. They're probably not going to have much energy. They're getting skinnier, but there's still plenty of meat. So this is field day for a while.
For the cave lions, it is a time of plenty. The monsoon weather pattern will deposit more toba ash here in India than anywhere else in the world. In just a matter of days, the habitat of these cave lions will be covered in a thick blanket of the sickly volcanic residue. Some parts of India are buried up to 10 feet deep. But the good times won't last long. It's 2 weeks into the disaster. Seasonal rainstorms now add to the misery of Southeast Asia. The water cycle is turning acidic from the presence of so many toxic chemicals in the air.
Sulfur dioxide or hydrogen sulfide, those are the two gases that will be produced by a volcanic eruption. When they get into the atmosphere, they start to react with water vapor, and they become small acid droplets.
The caustic rain poisons groundwater. Freshwater streams become undrinkable. The few remaining stegodons are already weary from hunger. Now the few that are left will soon die of thirst. The surviving cave lions aren't faring any better. The dehydrated predators seek refuge on higher ground. But there will be no shelter from this storm. Almost every animal alive in the region is doomed to die. is almost certain that isolated communities of humans in Southeast Asia were completely wiped out.
I absolutely believe there must have been local populations of humans that did die out, that some genetic makeup of our species that perhaps would have enriched us or changed us or made us different in some way do go extinct.
After weeks of lava and ash, Toba's caldera finally falls silent. But any comfort this is to the animals of Earth is quickly crushed. Toba has set in motion a catastrophic chain reaction. What began in fire will end in ice. Death is less bitter punishment than death's delay. Ovid, 1st century BC. The Toba supervolcano has fallen silent. But the pollutants released in the eruption usher in a nightmarish new phase of the disaster. Global climate change. For the past 1.8 million years, the planet has seesawed between ice ages and times of relative warmth, called interglacial periods. When Toba erupted, Earth was interglacial. Some scientists theorize the supervolcano triggered the next ice age.
That's one of the big things about these volcanic eruptions is they produce feedbacks. That is, they start cooling, and then if it's enough, then other parts of our climate system react to it, respond, and maybe enhance the cooling.
The key to the volcano's climate-changing force is the sulfur content in the gas it releases.
One of the most significant gases that can influence climate is sulfur dioxide. Sulfurous gases, if they can get into the stratosphere, can reside there for long periods of time. And when I say long periods of time, I mean several years.
When sulfur dioxide reaches the stratosphere, it transforms into sulfate particles that radiate the sun's energy back into space. Cut off from life-giving sunlight, the Earth below begins a massive cool down, a boomerang effect with epic consequences. When Mount Tambora erupted in 1815, it spawned the year without a summer. Crop failures and famines ensued. Scientists theorize that Toba, an eruption 50 times larger than Tambora, may have had a similar effect all over the world.
The eruption caused a global winter for several years, which would have resulted in much fewer plants, fewer wildlife for people to hunt, and it would have essentially caused starvation.
5 years pass. The sun can't break through the smoggy cloud layer to warm the Earth. Temperatures plummet 10 to 30 degrees. Though it might not sound so drastic to us, the temperature drop devastates our ancient ancestors. They've never had to deal with temperatures below 50 degrees.
74,000 years ago, there were not very many of us on this planet, and that's the big problem. 74,000 years ago, we get this huge disaster of this volcanic extravaganza at a time when human populations are so small that there could have been the total extinction of humanity quite easily.
The human population dwindles. Hundreds of thousands die. It is the darkest chapter in the history of the human race. Based on study of our own DNA, scientists theorize the human population may have bottlenecked to as few as 20,000 individuals.
What you can do is look at the diversity of DNA sequences that are present in modern humans. Calculate how much variation there has been back through time. And you can see that humans actually have relatively low variation relative to a lot of species. And the reason for this is because it was very recently that we actually had this bottleneck.
The mass variability of the human genome constricted right down. This is why it's called a bottleneck. A bottle is a big open thing, and then you got that tiny little neck. You have to get through that if you're pouring out. Well, there isn't much to get through after this particular event.
Temperatures continue to drop. Icy conditions become the norm. The human race teeters on the edge of extinction. 10 years after the Toba eruption, the ash and pollutants finally wash out of the atmosphere. Earth tries to recover from the disaster, but the path is arduous. Pushed over the edge by the volcanic winter, snow and ice begin collecting over the poles. Over the course of thousands of years, massive glaciers form and slowly creep toward the equator. For a planet already stunned by the supervolcano's wrath, this ice age may be the nail in the coffin. It's 10,000 years ago, over 60,000 years since Toba erupted. The supervolcano nearly drove our species to extinction, but intelligence and innovation have brought them back from the brink. As the Ice Age ends and the world thaws, man becomes the world's top predator. And for thousands of years, mammoths have been their chief food source. Some scientists theorize that human hunting drove the mammoths to extinction.
You only have to take out about 2% of the babies of an elephant population per year, more than nature otherwise would, to cause an extinction in about 500 years. It would have only taken some humans taking out a few more mastodons, mammoths than would have otherwise been taken to cause their extinction.
In the epic fight for survival, it is man's innovative nature and ever-advancing technology that gives them the edge. One new weapon, the atlatl, is a simple stick with a cup carved at one end. By inserting a spear into the cup, the thrower can then use leverage to improve his range. The atlatl now gives human hunters the ability to attack from further away. They could throw their previous spears about 200 feet. This modification more than doubled that range. The tougher life became for ancient humans, the more they pioneered new ways to survive. Their intelligence and tools ensure the survival of our species.
One of the most fascinating of all questions is whether this particular event actually improved us. Improved in the sense that making us more as we are now. Evolution seems to be about life. It's really about death. Death makes evolution work. And evolution is looking back. It is the series of genes you got from the survivability of the group before you, adapted at that time before you.
Alas, in the wake of Toba, many other species of large mammals, Gigantopithecus, Panthera leo, Elasmotherium, disappear forever. But on the grand scale of mass extinction, Toba is just a blip. The tropical rains turn the volcano's massive caldera into a lake that still exists today, leaving scarcely any sign of the terrible catastrophe that changed the world. But it's not over. Underneath the crust, magma still rages, Supervolcanic events like Toba can happen at any time, leaving our species at risk. In fact, scientists believe we may be less prepared than even our ancient ancestors to deal with the crisis.
75,000 years ago, these early hominids had to be jack of all trades in order to survive in that kind of a habitat. Today, we've all become specialized. We're not jack of all trades, or at least most of us aren't, and therefore, in many ways, culturally, we're less well equipped than early humans even to face a severe environmental catastrophe like this.
Mankind is but a small player in the drama of Earth's mass extinction. No matter where the next supervolcano strikes, its devastation is sure to be felt around the world. Are we resourceful enough to survive as our ancestors did? There is no doubt we will be tested again.